Hello and welcome back to another video on Path of Exile. This is a bit of a retrospective on the second Phrecia League and some points of contention that caused me some frustration over the league. Then a bit of a different point than I've seen other people talking about. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about it. Probably just me venting into the void, but maybe someone finds this and this is constructive. So what am I talking about? Phrecia, for those who don't know, is this temporary event in Path of Exile 1, where we get alternate ascendancies. You get an idle system, which is droppable items that you put into your map device that replaces the Atlas skill tree. So it gives you kind of this fun variety event where you have different builds you can try out, different farming strategies you can try out that you can't normally use in standard Path of Exile, and gives you kind of something to do because there was more downtime between leagues this time than as usual. Uh, and then on top of that, the big thing that everyone's been talking about is that they added in for this second Phrecia League the boss modifiers from Zizran's class gauntlet from last time, which are a bunch of just insane bonuses that different bosses get of different mechanics that get thrown in to existing boss fights in the campaign and some of the like pinnacle boss fights. Like you do Searing Exarch and there's just Shaper hanging out, tossing out Shaper beams at you. Pretty wild, pretty gnarly. On top of that, they also made it so that every unique monster during the event, as soon as they hit 50% health, they enrage. And this was really dangerous in the beginning. Gives them extra damage, extra speed. Eventually, they did a hot fix and toned it down a bit. It wasn't quite as bad. But the last thing, and the thing that caused me so much frustration, is this little thing down here. Every single map, every single area you open has some extra modifiers on it thrown in. It just like rolls. At least they did a good job. They like removed some of the like brickiest modifiers that just make maps unrunnable for certain builds. But this more than the other two. A lot of people had frustrations with the other two. But for me, I played Zizran's Class Gauntlet, and once you know about that, the mechanics from that, and once you know about the Enrage, like it's not as bad. This one is just kind of the silent killer that just kind of gives you the middle finger. Like you just open up a map and you're like you check it beforehand. You're like, yeah, there's no bad modifiers on this map. Maybe you run a filter if you're like rolling a bunch of maps, and then you're just like, yeah, let's just go and grind out some maps, and then you just run into it and you just randomly die. You're just like, what the fuck just killed me? And you like look at the modifiers and you're like, oh well, it added in like crit and damage is extra fire, and it's like, oh yeah, the monsters just did like 2 to 3 times more damage than I was expecting. So as I was like leveling up early endgame, like progressing through the Atlas, this killed me like more than anything else. I think I died like 2 times during the campaign. For context, I was playing softcore self-found. I just was kind of having a casual time. Uh, I think I died 20 or 30 times going from like level 65 to like 85 just due to this. And it's just like every time you open a map, like I just can't be bothered to like read through the fucking paragraph of text on the side to try and figure out if it like added in bad modifiers. Like it's just cuz like that's the fix. Like just every time you open a map and you read through those modifiers, that's like a terrible solution to trying to deal with this. And then if you do that, what if you like juice the map? Like, what if you put in your scarabs? Like, I'm solo self-found. I don't have that many scarabs. I maybe finally get a good set, and I like juice a mechanic. Like, I don't know. Like, I finally get enough good Legion scarabs and some good Legion idols, and like I can finally like juice a couple maps and like maybe get enough to like run a endless conflict and get a timeless jewel. And like, oh well, I opened one of the maps and I can only juice like 3 maps, and this one's just like really gnarly. It just added in like crit and monster speed, and you're like, well, I'm probably gonna die to this map, but I guess I still run it. Like, um, and you might be saying, okay, well, this is just for this one event. A bunch of people kind of got frustrated with different aspects of this event, like the boss mechanics and the frenzy, and kind of just like, this isn't for me. I'll come back when there's actually an event. But it kind of started getting me thinking about this is a point that I get frustrated with a lot in this game in general. Of just the map modifiers in this game are really fucking swingy. Like they're really swingy. So like for reference, I guess let's look at this. So here's some map modifiers. These are equally weighted modifiers. Monster skills chain 2 additional times, and monster skills fire 2 additional projectiles. These are the same weight when you roll a map, equal chance of them spawning. They're almost identical bonuses. You do get a little bit more from having the extra additional projectiles. One of these is one of the most dangerous modifiers in the fucking game, and one of these does almost nothing. Like, you can roll a map that has chains additional times, like areas inhabited by abominations. That doesn't do anything. I mean, these are lower rated, but there's a bunch of them for all the different types of monsters. Like, you can roll a map that has pretty much 0 difficulty increase and has all of the increased item quantity, like with just a slight hit, maybe. Or you can roll the bad modifiers and get absolutely just destroyed by monsters. There's a bunch of modifiers that are kind of just bad for everyone. Like all these damage modifiers, the additional projectiles, these all hurt. And then there's modifiers that just brick certain builds. Like the reflect one's an obvious one. You have elemental damage versus physical damage. Like if you're running an elemental damage build or a physical damage build that you do damage yourself, if you roll one of those, you're just bricked. And then if you're not doing that, they're nothing. That's free increased item quantity on your map. So like it's really binary. All of these modifiers are like either huge spikes in difficulty or just do absolutely like nothing. And some of them are global for all builds, and some of them are just build dependent, but the result is the same. When you roll a map, you could end up with, even if it's a 4 mod map, 2, 4, or a 6 mod map, hopefully by the end game you're running 6 mod, 8 mod maps, you could have the same 6 mod map and be absolutely fine, and you can roll a 6 mod map and it absolutely just destroys you based off of what modifiers you picked, and then you gotta learn. So that what's the solution for this? You learn what modifiers are bad, and then you just don't run those, which I've done, and I kind of just accepted that this was okay until this event happened, and it forced me to deal with this again. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is like, why is this the case? Like, I love a lot of things about this game, Path of Exile, but why are there modifiers that are super, super bad and modifiers do absolutely nothing? And you just don't, if you roll your thing and don't look at it and go, like, you'll end up with an experience of everything's fine, everything's fine, and then randomly you get just totally destroyed because you got the bad ones. Which, from a game design's perspective, it's just like really bad. Like, you don't really want to have something where you have randomized spikes of like punishment. Randomized punishments are really frustrating for players to deal with versus what most of this game does and does really well is you have these randomized spikes of benefits, of randomized spikes of, oh, great, I dropped this amazing thing. I can finally use it. Like, nothing. I dropped a mage blood. Oh my god, that's a huge dopamine spike. Everything's great. It's awesome. And then you'll go through those deserts of nothing happening, searching for that high again. Versus if you have this spike of difficulty, out of nowhere, you just like, well, why did that happen? Like, it's the other side of this problem is that it's like hidden also. So, like, if you have these difficulty spikes, the game looks absolutely identical. Like, if you run a map with the bad modifiers and you run a map with the good modifiers, where nothing's problematic, I mean, aside from like this, multi-proj is pretty noticeable when you see a multi-proj map and you're like, oh, this is bad. Uh, it looks the same. A goat folk, like jumping at me and slamming me is gonna look the same whether it's doing has no damage modifiers or if it has fizz as extra cold, crit, and like increased damage, all stacking on it and making it do like 3 to 4 times more damage than it usually does. So it's just completely untelegraphed to the player, and it's exacerbated again by the fact that we don't have any feedback for when you die. Like, you don't have a death recap, which everyone clamors for and would be great. But that just exacerbates this problem of you just die out of nowhere and you're like, huh, why did I die? I did the same thing I did 100 times before in maps, and this time I just randomly died. And it's because behind the scenes, there's these random combinations of modifiers constantly mixing and matching. And even like later on, once you have a really powerful build and you're like, yeah, I can run these modifiers, they're not that bad. I can often run these modifiers, but if I get all of them, like if I run a crit map, I'm fine. If I run a damage as cold map, I'm fine. If I run a speed map, I'm fine. If I run a map that's crit, damage as cold, and speed, I get absolutely railed. It's just multiplicative layers of difficulty and damage increase on monsters compared to like players' effective hit pools, which scale pretty linearly for the most part. Like, linearly scale up your defenses, get higher and higher and higher as you progress through the end game and get better and better gear. And it's like, yeah, great, I got another another 500 life because I got some good gear. I got another 500 life, another 500 life, and then you have these modifiers that are just like, yeah, times two, times two, times two, get fucked. How would I redesign the system? So just putting on my game dev hat for a moment, what we have is a system that gives us randomized penalties associated with maps once we start adding modifiers to them because we want more difficulty and more rewards, right? There's a juicing up mechanic of we want to juice our maps up, so we add modifiers to them so that you get more quantity. But the amount of juice you get per modifier is relatively fixed, and the penalties you get from each modifier is really randomized. And one of the things I would think to do is just flip that on its head. I would make it so that every modifier is just a fixed difficulty increase of like, hey, every single modifier you get 20% more monster damage, 20% more monster toughness, done. And then you add in modifiers. Maybe you still even have fixed increased item quantity, but you could flip it and add in, here's like extra Eater of World shrines, or here's extra Legion encounter, here's an extra thing, and then you would still have this system that promotes trading because you would find like, oh, this is a really good juicy map for running harbingers or something like that, or maybe this is a really good map that has a ton of pack size because so you can run like a ritual and get a ton of tribute, which kind of exists already in Path of Exile 2 with the omens. Right now, you have omens that will force every modifier to be like pack size or item rarity, so you can kind of target farm certain mechanics better. But you could add that into Path of Exile 2, and if you still want things where like, hey, maybe this is a damage as fire map or a like monster speed map, maybe you could still even have like one implicit modifier at the top of the map that kind of sets what type of map it is, and then you would still have a market of like, hey, maybe I don't run the speed maps. They're really annoying for me. Or maybe I don't run the damage extra chaos maps. Those are annoying for me. But they'd at least be like, hey, there's this one thing you need to pay attention for the map, and then everything else is just a fixed difficulty increase, and you have these like randomized spikes of rewards. So you might find really good extra bonus rewards, or they might be more meh, and you could kind of just you can alk and go and not be super punished for it, but you can also super optimize your maps to try and get the best modifiers to juice your particular strategy you're trying to do. For me, that seems like a pretty good option. I guess the other way to go with this is you could kind of try and tackle the other problem of this is randomized difficulty, but it's hidden difficulty in the current tier 16 maps modifiers. You could try and make the hidden difficulty more visible, which is kind of what has happened with the tier set. Many of the tier 17 modifiers are very visible. Like, as frustrating as running a tier 16.5 or a 17 with like the rare monsters have shaper influence on them. The first time I ran one of those, I had a giant grin on my face as shaper beams shot at me from every direction. And I had no there was no confusion of what got me killed when I died in that map. Like, it was the shaper beams. The shaper beams blew me up. So you could try and rework the modifiers to add more visible difficulty to it, and or just normalize the penalties so that there's less spikes of this modifier adds absolutely no difficulty for my build. This modifier like literally doubles the damage. Make it so that every modifier is much closer to being like, oh, this is another 20-30% damage, 20-30% damage, 20-30% damage. And then maybe mix in a couple of these really, if there is a really spiky one, make that really visible. Like monsters summon volatiles when they die, so then that changes up the gameplay experience instead of just adding this hidden thing where suddenly a blue mob smacks you for 80% of your health and you're like, what? And you just die out of nowhere from running the same map you ran 50 times in a row with the same monsters you dealt with 50 times in a row. They just randomly do way more damage than before. So I think that would be better. I think that moving towards a more visible randomized difficulty is a good avenue to go for this. I mean, you see this even in the game with just many of the mechanics. Like, if you have syndicate encounter of, oh wow, I got a random syndicate encounter and they're here to assassinate me, that's a very visible thing happening in the game of like, here's some unique monsters that are coming for me and they do a bit more damage than usual and I need to be a little bit careful. Or even in Passive Exile 2 of, hey, I open up they have like the standing stones that summon map bosses. I open it up as map boss, most of the time it's fine. Sometimes it's the monkey that one shots you and you see the monkey, and if you're in hardcore, you just immediately log out because you're like, "Fuck this monkey, I'm out." So I think there are ways to do randomized difficulty. I think this just ain't it, and I think that the solutions that it forces player into, you can pose this with many of the things in Path of Exile 1. There's a lot of things that are like, oh, this punishes you, and then you have to like figure out a solution to fix it with like buildcraft and things like that. Those are all very fun avenues that forces the game player to engage with systems that the game does well and that are fun for the player to engage with. Like dying to a pinnacle boss and being like, man, I need to go back and rework my build. That's what the game is all about, and that's what all the players are here to do. I don't think many players are here to re-roll maps in their base for 10 minutes until they have like 20 maps that are all super juicy and good. Like, they do it because they have to. Like, you filter your maps and you skim your maps and you learn these bad modifiers because the game forces you to, because if you don't, it punches you in the groin repeatedly with randomized spikes of insane difficulty. Where, like, I mean, I remember the first time I ran a reflect map. I don't know, when I was started playing this game 3 years ago or something like that. My response to dying in that map instantly, first off, was what the fuck just killed me? There's no visible indication of why I'm dying. I just die. My second response was I look through all the modifiers and I read, hey, monsters reflect damage. And I'm like, my response to that isn't, oh, cool. My response to that is, that's dumb. Right? Why are there these things in here that I'm like, we talk about new player experience. That's a terrible new player experience. Like, I think I literally stopped playing endgame at yellow maps on the first character I got to endgame with because of instances like that where I just died and I was like, thankfully I kept playing because I was like, oh, I'm gonna reroll and play the campaign again. I really liked all these characters and all this build diversity, and eventually I figured things out. But moments like that are just terrible player experience and force new players away, and then also force even veteran players to engage in the game in a way that is less fun. Like, it forces me to look up a filter, copy the filter my maps, do all this like random busy work for seemingly no reason. Like, there is some benefit to it, but I just don't see it. So yeah, that's my rant. That's what I got out of Phrecia 2. Um, and that's my thoughts on the modifiers, map modifiers, Path of Exile, and really many other games. I mean, even Last Epoch was kind of mirroring this. When I played a bit of Last Epoch, you get the randomized modifiers, and like you just don't read them. Like, what's the point of having randomized modifiers where you get randomized amounts of difficulty if you don't read them? Period. Like, if there's a giant brick of text and I'm never fucking reading it, why is there randomized spikes of difficulty? Why is that a randomized thing? I think it just begs the question of like it shouldn't be randomized. It should just be here's just a scaling amount of difficulty and then here's a scaling amount of rewards, and then from there you can add in, if you want to add randomized spikes of difficulty, make them visible, or just don't do it and only add randomized spikes of benefits of, hey, this map is super juicy, right? It has all rare monsters have an extra modifier. That's really good. Yeah. That's all I got. I'll catch you later.